Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Erewash series. Erewash is one of the 9 subdivisions of the county of Derbyshire. There are 14 civil parishes within it. Let's see which one we're in today. So last time out in Erewash we looked at Braegd and Church Wilne, which was on the Derby Canal, and today I've got another place for you that sits on the former route of the Derby Canal. This is much bigger. This is Breaston. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Breaston, pronounced Breaston despite being spelt Breaston, is a large village lying approximately 6 miles east of Derby and 8 miles west of Nottingham. Breaston means Braegd's farm or settlement, deriving from Old English for a personal name and an enclosure, farmstead or village. Our route starts on Stephen's Lane, one of the many mainly residential streets in the village, and as a settlement of well over 4,000 people, this one has lots to investigate. Amongst its features there's a church, a range of shops and 3 pubs, all of which are still named as they were in 1846. Most of the amenities are clustered around the centre of the village. We're heading for that right now, and to do so we need to cross the village green, which is known as Duffield Close. This is said to be one of the largest in the country. Whether or not that's true is probably subjective. Regardless, Breaston has an annual May Day fete held here. Let's see some basic information before we go any further. So here we are at the Green, the village's central area, which has the main shops all based around a small car park. Breaston proudly displays a sign which overlooks the Green, this sign right here. It's not clear how urban village is defined, but the accolade was bestowed upon the village twice, in 2000 and 2002. Urban village it may be, but Breaston was not one of the thankful villages. There are 31 villagers after World War I who never saw their families again. Here's the memorial garden created in 1975. There's also a memorial in the church which lists villagers who fought and died during World War II. Breaston celebrated the end of World War II with fireworks on Duffield Close. Breaston's main shop at the Green is a co-op, but there are others here which include a hairdresser's, a sandwich bar and Breaston's post office. And the parish notice board is here as well, a massive pin board this one. Mark it off guys, Breaston is another one down in Erewash. Here's a handy map of the place right next to the notice board. Breaston is clearly visible on a 1648 map of Derbyshire produced by the Dutch cartographer Joan Blau. On it, it's written as Breaston. On the right here is the first of Breaston's 3 pubs. This is the Checkers Inn, and all are welcome at it because it's child friendly and dog friendly too. There's a bus shelter here as well. Breaston can be accessed via the same iGo bus service that serves Braegd. The number 222 bus also stops in the village. All in all, you're well served here. I wouldn't expect anything less from a village that's larger than some towns we've already covered, if I'm honest. At 25 Main Street, just across the road, there's a butcher's shop, G.W. Dundas. It's one of a pair, in fact, because there's also one in neighbouring Draycott. Not far away on the other side of the road is Hogg's Bistro at 30 and 32 Main Street. This had something rather unusual outside it. This is pretty cool. It's a flower bed in the shape of a boot. We continue to the west and we're heading for the beautiful Breaston Centenary Garden. Our walk will pass that before we head to Marlborough Road and on to the next major landmark. The site of the village has been occupied for some 2,000 years or more. The discovery of a Middle Bronze Age dagger and excavations in the area to the south of Harriman's Drive back that up. Breaston was also mentioned in the Domesday Book as a settlement in the Hundred of Morleystone wapentake. It had an estimated population of 15 in just 8 households at that time. It's well and truly grown since then. At that time, it was mentioned as belonging to Henry de Ferrers. Breaston was just one of the many manors in Derbyshire which he owned. Apart from him, land in the village has been held by various people. Amongst them were Gilbert of Ghent, Geoffrey of Aslin, and the Channel favourite, Roger de Busley. Tax records of 1780 show 43 landowners together with 42 occupiers. Even in 1801, Breaston only had a population of 379. The Industrial Revolution did the rest. Okay, so my route now goes down Marlborough Road. It doesn't go as far as the railway line where the old railway station would have been, and my Draycott route didn't cover that either. But down here there's something that's probably a little bit more interesting than that. At the end of Marlborough Road is the start of something called the Coffin Walk. Rather ominously named, it's actually a pleasant walk. It's a footpath which was used to transport coffins. Also known as the Corpse Way, it runs to St Chad's Church. Prior to the consecration of St Michael's in 1824, coffins had to be walked along the route for burial. The Coffin Walk runs all the way to Church Wilne and crosses the Midland Main Line, which leads us to a couple of things about the local railway. Breaston was suggested to be the preferred location for the East Midlands Hub HS2 railway station. The line, of course, has now been scrapped, but the station plans were ruled out anyway in 2015. The village does have some railway history. The first Long Eaton railway station was on Sawley Lane and was first used in 1839 when the line opened. It was the third station on the line west from Nottingham. It was originally called Breaston, but the name was changed to Sawley to avoid confusion with nearby Beeston, which is a suburb of Nottingham. The Church of St Michael is a Grade 1 listed building. Structural parts of the interior, including its double chamfered pointed arches on octagonal piers, appear to be 11th century in origin. This is mostly 14th and 15th century though. The roofs were raised in the 16th century and a restoration took place in 1871 by Robert Evans of Nottingham. Facing the church across Main Street is Breaston's Methodist Church. Note the modern porch which replaced a pair of smaller original porches. It still has an active congregation. This next building I thought was an old school, and I was right. More accurately, it's an old infant school erected in 1857. The building is still in use because these days it's the church hall. A few more shops on the opposite side of the road bring us to the end of Main Street where it meets Wilsthorpe Road and Risley Lane. That's where we find the second pub. That would be the Bull's Head. If you like a traditional village pub, you'll love this one, as it's like stepping back in time to when pubs had wooden beams and cosy corners. Okay, so the next section of the route is a walk down Wilsthorpe Road. It's quite a long way to the other end of the village. All the interesting stuff is this end of the village, so I'm expecting up here to see plenty of housing estates. Let's see. So now the road name has changed to Wilsthorpe Road, but it's still the A6005. If followed all the way through Breaston, it will eventually end up in Long Eaton. We pass a small village green area, which is where the village sign for the thumbnail of this video is sited, as well as this interesting little sculpture. I wonder what this is all about. Does anyone know? The next part of the walk is very residential. It'll be a while now before we hit our next major landmark, which is going to be Perks Park off Longmoor Lane. That means I can get in some more bits of history and general information as we walk. Let's start with notable residents, and Wikipedia lists 3. These are the Blessed Edward James, who was a Catholic martyr, the Right Honourable Jeff Hoon MP, who was Secretary of State for Defence from 1995 to 2005, and actress Molly Windsor. Believe it or not, the village is in the Trent Valley floodplain area, although the actual river is about 1.5 miles away. Despite being much more urban than most villages we see on here, the surrounding countryside is still very much valued by the local community. Much of the land around Breaston is low-lying heavy clay, which horses' hooves churn up in winter months. As we've seen, Breaston has a good network of footpaths and bridleways that radiate from the village. If you're wondering how and why Breaston has grown to its current size, this predominantly agricultural community turned to industry and the railway for employment by the 19th century. As early as 1821, there were between 50 and 60 framework knitters in the village. By 1844, 50 of the 6,447 stocking frames found in Derbyshire were at Breaston. Out onto Longmoor Lane, we see a sign for National Cycle Route 6. You might recall that from last week's Draycott and Church Wilne episode. After it passes through the village, Route 6 takes in some of the urban areas of Derby before heading north through Sherwood Forest to Worksop and then on into Rother Valley Country Park. Well, score one for me, I was right. There's plenty of housing estates in this part of Breaston. Nice mix of old and new buildings as well. They're not all new, they're not all old. Our route continues through some more housing estates next. Let's talk sport, seeing as we're yet to mention that. Football-wise, there's Breaston Park FC, founded in 2007. The club was nominated for and won the Erewash Sports Club of the Year 2009 and YEL Small Club of the Year in 2011. Then there's Athletica FC, who play on Breaston Recreation Ground in the winter months. Breaston Cricket Club, formed in 1836, play on the Soldiers and Sailors Ground on Risley Lane. Here we are at Perks Park, which unlike Duffield Close is much more about recreation. Whilst Duffield is a large open green space, this park has a playground and sports facilities. The park's most striking feature would be this. This is the Breaston wind engine, built to pump water for use in the paddling stream, which is right next to it. Breaston Parish Council's website says this was built in 1935 and restored in 2008, but it's unclear if that means the windmill or the stream. Either way, it's an impressive structure. I think it's fair to say that Perks Park is one of the perks of living in Breaston. Too good me, aren't I? The park also has a toilet block too, not something you see in every public park, it has to be said. When I become Prime Minister, I'll make it law that every park must have one. We emerge back onto Longmoor Lane. Although the village is mainly residential, there are some signs of former industry. We're about to encounter Plackett's Lace Factory. After the decline of the lace trade, this became a jute factory, then a sheet metal works, and was then subsequently rebuilt and now houses a number of small firms. And our final stop on our main walk around is the third and final pub, the Navigation Inn, which stands next to another industrial remnant, the former Derby Canal. Prior to 1964, the Derby Canal ran through Breaston, and in much the same way as in Draycott, there's now a canal trust actively trying to restore this, with most people being in favour. At this point on the canal, there was a winding hole, which boats would have used to turn around. If you walk down the side of the pub, you can see where it would have been. Alright, I've just got a few more steps to go back to where my car is parked, and then I'll drive you to the end point of this video, which is a cemetery. Before we do that though, you guys need a picture bit, and that's coming your way right now. So to finish, we're in Breaston Cemetery, which is in fact two cemeteries which have combined to form one, the other being called Longmoor Cemetery. The cemetery chapel is usually open to visitors on Easter Sunday, Mother's Day, Father's Day, and on the Sunday prior to Christmas Day. It can also be visited by appointment. However, the cemetery suffered some flooding at the end of 2019 and the chapel has been out of use as a result. It's now 2022 though, so who knows, it might have reopened by now. This I thought was a nice peaceful spot to round this one off, and it was also the most logical. From here, you can easily access the M1 at junction 25, it's about a mile away via Long Eaton. Well, it's a fairly big cemetery here in Breaston, but then again, when you think about it, it's a village that's got over 5,000 people, so I suppose it has to be. If you look at it, you'll see there's plenty of space left in it. We've got a big block here. There's no headstones in that. There's not much in the one behind it, and this one here, over here to my left has still got plenty of space in it as well. So there's plenty of burial space here in Breaston Cemetery. And that brings the Breaston episode of Erewash to a close, and it's time for me to move on to my next one here in the borough. I don't even know what it's going to be yet because I haven't planned that far ahead, but you will find out if you tune into the channel next Thursday. For now, this has been the Parish of Breaston in Erewash, and I've been Andy, otherwise known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out!